afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Besides waiting on table, I'm Mary Curley.
That's it all. Can we see your passport, please?
Preliminarily, we are delayed because of the interview we had this morning with another candidate, and also we had a ceremony in the House chamber for the certification of the election of two new representatives, one of whom was John Barrett from North Adams, who I served when I was mayor. So it's good to see everyone. We have our counselors here today. I would indicate that Councilor Casey left to go home sick. But I expect everybody else will be here shortly. As I said, there was delay as a result of the issuance of the certification vote. So I'm calling this meeting to order. Formally, this is a hearing for the nomination of Robert T. Santaniello to the position of Associate Justice for the Springfield District Court. At this time, we'll hear from the witnesses, and we'll start with, in no particular order, although he is one of my favorites, Attorney Edward F.E. Cavari, Jr. Of the McKinley County District Attorney's Office. Attorney Cavari.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. May I sit?
You may, absolutely. You're invited to.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies, and distinguished guests. I'm honored to be here before this council. I'm honored to be here on behalf of the nominee, my friend, colleague, Robert Santaniello. And again, honored to be before this esteemed council. Quickly, I'd like to say that I've known the nominee for over 25 years. Back in 1991, 1992, when I thought I was an elder lawyer with about 7 years in, I welcomed this young man down the street whose family legacy preceded him by a father, I'll call him power broker, lawyer, a man in the community that we all held in high esteem. I'm sure Mr. Juberville remembers as well, and certainly Councilor Hurley as well. So I've known this nominee for over a quarter of a century. I've watched him from a distance initially and then closer over the years as we became colleagues in the bar. We were known affectionately in those years as district court rats, where we would come across the street and represent all the folks along the way. And that's where we honed our skills in the early years. I know that this nominee comes from a strong family legacy from both his father and from what I hear, although I did not know his mother, a gentle, loving woman I've heard from many in the community, and certainly his sister, who's present here today, a strong woman who also grew up in the profession with us. My image of the nominee and I say this very openly and very fondly, as a street kid, much like myself from Syracuse. We grew up on the ball fields and in the hockey rinks in our respective communities. We were connected strongly to the communities, as I've watched and seen Rob Santaniello over the years. I know his commitment to his city of Springfield, where he grew up, Cathedral High grad. I've watched him interact on the rinks in the community, as well as certainly watched him practice law over the years. What comes to mind when I think about this candidate very, very fondly is the characteristics of a judge that I've watched for well over 32 years. In my current position as District Court Chief for DA Anthony Gallooni, I'm in all the district courts in the county. Like Rob, like Laura, like Mr. Franco and others in the room, we are on our third generation of judges. And I look at Rob in the mold of some of those we started with. And I think of judges like Judge Berganis, Judge Walsh, Judge Sheehy, and then we go to our next generation with now Counselor Hurley, formerly Judge Hurley. And the characteristics that I have witnessed most fondly over the years from all of these are a selfless patience, humility balanced by a self-assuredness, toughness, firm, resilient, keen courtroom awareness. And I think many of you who have lived in the courtroom like I have know what that means. A judge who comes out on the bench and is fondly aware and keenly aware of what is going on in his courtroom community rather than maybe just that file in front of him. I see Rob Santaniello as one of those judges, a guy who's invested in his community, somebody who has the Springfield kid in him still, who loves his community, someone that we would welcome on the bench, someone who the litigants, be they defendants or parties, the lawyers themselves in the courtroom would have immense respect for as a former practitioner, which we can all identify with. So I say this with great regard, that I urge this council to vote favorably on his nomination. I see him as a fair, balanced, and as a lawyer across the table for many years, solution-oriented, not one to create trouble, not one to want to pick on lawyers, humiliate lawyers, or deprecate lawyers, one who invites them as a former practitioner himself. And I give him the highest regard and urge this council to confirm his nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
Another question, but I just want to thank you for all the help you gave me when I was here up there in those courts, and Attorney Franco and all the other lawyers. You do a remarkable job helping us, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jubilo.
Any other questions? Hearing none, you're all set? Okay, hearing none, you're excused and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Now, one of my favorite defense attorneys, Joseph Franco.
I know it's also your
favorite.
Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have known Attorney Santaniello for approximately 25 years. Before Attorney Cavari spoke, he asked to look at my notes. Almost everything he said I had written down, so you certainly got the flavor of what he's about. Robbie's uniquely qualified. He's a very smart, intelligent man. But the best quality a judge can have is he is a compassionate, personal individual. He interacts well with people. He understands people. He has a real compassion for the folks that will be in front of him. Robbie's going into the district court. Attorney Santaniello will be wonderful in the district court. As you know, the district court is usually the court that people first interact, that people first commit. There's many times not the hardened criminals. We have an opioid crisis in front of us today. The governor has just proposed legislation. There has to be an approach taken where Attorney Cavari will prosecute the people that need to be prosecuted. I will defend people who need to be defended, but the judge on the bench has to make that tough decision. And when a district court judge comes out in the morning, he can have 30, 40 dysfunctional people in front of him, all wanting something else, all in chaos, looking for a solution to their problems. When a judge comes on the bench, we need a judge that'll listen, realize what's available, try to consider all of the circumstances, and make the appropriate action. And that is really what we need in today's day and age. Attorney Santaniello will be the right person for that. He'll interact with everybody. He won't come out cold and look at a file. He's the type of person that will ask questions, go deeper into that, and realize what's needed here. Because many times people can be resolved in the district court, their lives can be put together, and they can go on. Others, well, unfortunately, things will happen and they will proceed forward in the system. But if we're going to start working with people, especially those in crisis with opioid or other addictions, those with mental health addiction, it usually starts in the district court. I'm very confident that soon to be Judge Santaniello would be the right person for that.
Thank you. Any questions? Counselor?
Nice to see you. So you've been here a bunch of times, and you're batting about 1,000, aren't you?
I hope so.
Now, he isn't going to be the type of judge who puts $1 million bail on one of your defendants, is he?
Well, there's always an appellate process for that. Attorney Santaniello, soon to be Judge Santaniello, will consider the whole situation, the whole circumstances. The point I was trying to make, it won't be perfunctory. He'll look at what's here, and $1 million bail is never appropriate. But sometimes, some terms and conditions are. And that's all as defense lawyers we want. We want somebody that's going to make an informed decision.
How long have you been practicing?
35 years, long time.
So you got, what, another 50 to go?
Not hardly.
No. Thank you very much.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Counselor Van?
I just want to know, how long have you known this nominee?
25 years.
25 years?
I knew his father. My uncles and his father grew up together. His father was a very respected attorney in the area. And then I've been very friendly with Robbie and his sister over the years. I've known the family. They're just outstanding people, and they've always treated other people very well. I have a high respect for them.
So you've seen him in court?
Oh, yes.
About how many times?
Occasionally I've had cases with him, but in and out the courthouse, many dozens over the years. Where we're in court, we're talking together, we may go out together after, talk about a case, or sometimes run ideas up against one another to get an understanding, another view. I've always respected his opinion.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It was very
Anyone
nice.
else? I can, as a judge, personally attest to the trial skills of Attorney Franco. I had a case, and it was a motor vehicle homicide, and did an outstanding job at the time.
Find the guy in that case.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Good job.
much, Judge. I appreciate
Very
it.
nice job.
Thank you, folks.
All right, and Monica House, who is Attorney Santaniello's legal assistant.
My boss.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak on behalf of Robert Santaniello. My name is Monica House. As you probably cannot tell from my accent, I was born in the Bavarian town of Neustadt, Germany, and on June 6, 1977, I came to the United States of America and have lived here ever since, which has been a delight. One of the reasons why it has been a delight is because I have had the privilege to work with Attorney Rob Santaniello for 18 years. I'm sorry.
You're going to make me cry.
I'm sorry. And if he was not becoming a judge, I'm sure I could have continued to work with Rob until we retired together. Even so, I cannot think of no better person that I can recommend to be a judge. In all the years I have worked with Rob, we've never had an argument or even a disagreement. No matter how busy and stressful a day may be for Rob, he has always treated me with respect, kindness, thoughtfulness, compassion, and consideration. I have also seen him many, many times with his clients, and he has always treated them with the utmost respect, consideration, and demonstrated great patience by listening to their problems. It was very apparent that he always had their best interest at heart. As his legal assistant and administrator, one of my duties is to assist Rob in the management and preparation of his cases. No matter how many cases he had, and there were a lot, he approached each case with the utmost care. Rob treated those cases equally, regardless of the amount involved or the offense charged, because each such case was so important to the client. I have also seen firsthand how Rob interacts with his wife and children, his sister Laura and his friends. He has always been a caring and protective husband, father, brother, and friend, and a role model for others. On a personal note, he always been a true and trusted friend for me over the years. Aside from the employer-employee relationship, one thing that makes it easier for me to be excited about Rob becoming a judge is knowing that we always will be friends. Simply put, this is a very good man, and he will truly make an excellent judge, one which will make the Springfield community proud.
Madam Chair,
All right,
sounds like you really gonna miss him, huh?
Yes, I am.
No, if you're gonna miss him too much, we can arrange for him to stay.
I'm sorry, I do apologize.
no need to apologize. Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
No questions, you did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
It was from the heart, and I really, really appreciate it. You couldn't have done a better job.
Thank you very much, sir.
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Councilor Devaney.
Thank you. And no deference, you had wonderful witnesses, but your testimony means the most because you see him more than his wife sees him.
Yes, I do. Maybe not why, but
So you know the stress he's under and the
Yes.
highs and the lows. That means a lot. And I have to tell you, my son in his service in the Army, 2 of those years he served in Mannheim.
oh yes, I know,
Sure.
by Frankfurt,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't think he was going to come home.
Oh.
The German people were so friendly, which I'm sorry, I stereotyped them differently.
I can
And
imagine. I
he
understand.
loved it, and he even learned a little of the language, and I thought, wow, that's so different, and he did. But I just wanted to tell you that they really were very warm to him. But thank you, your testimony means a lot.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we had an alternate witness in case one of the other witnesses couldn't make it. Attorney Laura Gentile, who's the clerk of the Superior Court, but she's crying already. I'm not going to call her. But I was comment.
She's on the bench.
She's on the bench. I would comment that if you can have your secretary or legal assistant, as you now know, and your sister, you're courageous enough to have them talk on your behalf, you must be one heck of a guy. At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce the counselors. As I indicated before, Counselor Casey was taken ill and she's gone home. We have Counselor Terrence Kennedy, Counselor Andrew Duff, the Dean of our Council, Christopher Iannella, Marilyn Petito Devaney, Robert Jubenville, who I believe you know, and also Counselor Ferrara, Counselor Iannella, Counselor Kennedy, and Counselor Jubenville, as I'm sure you know, are attorneys. So I'm sure they'll have checked you out with a fine-tooth comb, as they say. At this time, would you like to take the opportunity to introduce your friends and family?
I would like to thank you, Councilor Hurley. I will start with my wife, Susie, wife of 27 years. My children, where's Nicholas? Nicholas, Joe, and Samuel. My sister, Laura, her husband, Tommy Gentile. My nephew, TJ Gentile. My sister-in-law, my wife's sister, Kristen DeBurrow, her husband, Joseph DeBurrow, my brother-in-law. My dear friend of close to 30 years, Edward Partika, friend and a colleague. You know Monica, thank you. Thank you for those kind words, Monica, and you know Joe and Ed, thank you, gentlemen, for your kind words. David Garvey, friend of more than 40 years, and my dear friend from college of more than 35 years, Rich DeVito. Please tell me I didn't miss anyone.
You passed.
So far.
And at this time, I would invite you to give your opening remarks.
Thank you, Councilor Hurley.
But remember, there's no soul that's saved after 5 minutes.
I'll move right
Oh,
along.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. Mr. McCabe, would you like to speak? Yes, go. All right.
My name is Patrick McCabe. I'm the co-chair of the Fatherhood Coalition. The Fatherhood Coalition coalition is always concerned with any judge that's going to impact the lives of our families. I was very happy to find out that on election day, when I got home and I saw my phone machine blinking, one of those messages, other than being for all the candidates running for office, was a message from the nominee. He was reaching out to me, asking if he could talk to me about my concerns. I did answer that phone call, and we had a very good conversation. I asked the nominee the one question we have, his knowledge of and experience with 209As. He has had, he clearly knew the law. He knows what the legal standard is. He's worked on both sides of it, and he made it very clear that he would apply the law. I then asked him if he had ever seen a restraining order, in his opinion, that was issued by a judge that did not appear to meet the legal standard. He told me that he had, and in those cases, he helped people file the first notice for appeal. He told me that he did not do an appeal himself, but he helped the people along, and that in his experience, these people who get involved in these situations tend to drop the appeals. And that gave me the opportunity to talk to him about something I saw last week, and that's when I went to the appeals court, and I saw Counselor Manning arguing in front of the appeals court a 209A restraining order. And her argument was, in that case, that there was no legal basis for the 209A being issued. And the point of bringing this up and discussing it with him is that 209As are still being issued without regard for the law, and it creates a real problem. And I asked him if he was aware of the problems that it created, and he was. Also, the panel for Counselor Manning asked her if that 209A created any problems for the defendant in that case. And she explained how there was a divorce proceeding and it had a major impact on the person's lives, and issuing these restraining orders that should not be issued is a very real problem. The nominee assured me that he would follow the law. And I asked him, has he read the media over the last 3 weeks? Because if you read the media over the last 3 weeks, you kind of have this feeling that men are just no good, and they need to be the behavior needs to be addressed. And I brought this up because one of the reasons we've always heard that restraining orders are being issued the way they are is because the media pushes for them. Whether a restraining order gets issued or not, if something goes wrong, the media will make claims about a restraining order being issued. And in particular, I'm talking about the Heffernan case, where Justice Heffernan was accused of not issuing a restraining order that ended in the death, which partially true were not actually the facts. So I'm very concerned about how the media puts pressure on the courts for doing a variety of things, in particular the restraining order. And the nominee made it clear that he was going to follow the law, that he understood outside pressures that could be brought upon judges, but he was going to do his best. And I really think that's all you can ask for someone to have the knowledge and the courage to try and do the right job as a judge. And since that's what he said he was going to do, I'm here to support him today.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions? Patrick?
No, thank you, Pat.
All right. Also, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this nominee? All right. Hearing none, Councilor Santaniello, I would invite you.
Thank you, Councilor Hurley. I need to recognize 4 people who are not present in the room. They're no longer with us. My parents, Bob and Barbara Santaniello, my in-laws, Patty and Abby Hatchinorian. I miss them dearly, and I know they'd be proud of not just me, but our extended family that's here today. Again, thank you for chairing this and for your time and support throughout the process, Councilor Hurley. And I thank all the honorable councils for your time, your attention, and your consideration of my nomination. I thank Governor Baker for placing his trust in me with this nomination. I thank Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, Governor's Chief Legal Counsel Lon Povich, Deputy Chief Legal Counsel and JNC Executive Director Sherry Casey, and her great staff, Emily Gauthier and Olga Schulman. Between my JNC application and the questionnaire that you have before you, you probably have a pretty good handle on my professional career and some background information on my personal and civic life. So I'm going to highlight some parts of my life that you may not see on paper. I was born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. Mom was a homemaker, Dad was a lawyer for more than 50 years. We were part of a large, close-knit, extended family. My parents were great, loving people who instilled in me and my sister and my brother, Tom, who's not here today, he's down in Virginia. But they instilled in us the very basic values that form the bedrock for a healthy, productive life. Hard work, integrity, compassion, and treating people with respect, dignity, and civility. I was raised on a dead-end street in a neighborhood with lots of kids who have remained lifelong friends. Just this past summer, we had a neighborhood reunion, and I consider myself, and I know my sister, and brother, and my extended family would agree, blessed to have grown up in that neighborhood. As a kid, I shoveled snow, mowed grass, and did odd jobs. When I was 16 years old, I got a job at a soda bottling company. I still remember my first day on the job. They handed me a pair of heavy-duty gloves, a shovel, and a barrel. And they sent me in an area beneath the assembly line and said, lift those grates, clean it out. And I did that. And I was lifting and shoveling shards of broken glass with soda syrup over them. And I stayed there for a number of months, and I enjoyed that job. After graduating high school, I went to Bentley College. I returned home to Springfield and went to work in retail, working 70 hours per week for a number of years. Around 1997, my sister and I decided to go to law school. I started part-time nights while still working retail about 30, 35 hours per week. And after catching up with summer courses, I transferred to full-time days. My sister and I studied and passed the bar exam together. We're very close, and I look up to her with the utmost love and respect. Back in 1982, I met my then future wife, Susie. We got married July 22nd, 1990. It was between my second and final year of law school. She worked full-time to support us, and to this day has been a tireless worker in all facets of her life. After getting married, we lived with my sister in our grandmother's home in the south end of Springfield. Our Noni had passed away recently prior to that. And then my sister married my brother-in-law, Tommy, and we all lived together, and it was a great, great experience. What once, though, was a thriving Italian community where people could leave their cars and homes unlocked had deteriorated into a high-crime, drug-infested neighborhood. Living there for 2 years opened my eyes to other people's ways of life. We routinely heard gunshots, witnessed drug transactions, and other street crimes. And I still recall one Sunday, my wife and I came back from the Cape, spending the weekend there, and we learned that a woman's body had been found in a dumpster that was on the opposite side of the fence in our backyard. These events were in stark contrast to my upbringing. While living there, I noticed several young boys playing and hopping my fence to get from the projects where they lived to the other side. I was concerned for their safety. These were 10-year-old kids. I went outside, introduced myself, and said, you guys need to be careful when you're hopping the fence. And this was the beginning of an unexpected but very welcomed mentoring friendship. None of them had positive male role models. I soon found myself fixing their bikes, playing catch, giving them football, soccer balls, and baseball caps. I'm not sure what, if any, impact I had upon those kids, but later in life I ran into one of them with his daughter. He came trick-or-treating to my house. We looked at each other. Isaac? Huh? And his daughter was about the same age as her father was when I met him. And I can tell you that I'm richer for having known those kids. Recently I was asked, what's your greatest achievement? And without hesitation I said, my greatest achievement is my family. It's that simple. I'm so enriched to have partnered with my wife in raising our 3 boys, who I can say with great pride are becoming fine young men. We've tried to instill in them the same fundamental values that our parents instilled in us. If confirmed, I will bring open-mindedness, integrity, compassion, humility, and impartiality to the bench. In addition to judicial temperament, I am well aware that a good judge needs to handle stress. And at times will be called upon to make very difficult decisions. On a related personal note, my family and I have experienced 2 significant life-changing, stress-inducing events recently. We had a fire in our house. We were awakened by a fire on September 13, 2017. We've now been displaced from the home. No one was hurt, thankfully, but the house is in pretty bad shape right now. But we're going to get through it. The other event is my wife's had a number of surgeries over the years. The kids have been incredibly strong and supportive of Mom. These events have really tested our resolve, and our family has persevered through them. People say adversity builds character. I believe adversity reveals character. If confirmed, I can promise you, I will bring everything that I have learned and everything that has been revealed to me through my life experiences to the bench. Thank you for your time, your attention, your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize Representative John Vilas, who is here, who is also an attorney practicing in Westfield, and also Representative Bud Williams sends his regards. Didn't want to be here, but we ended up starting late. So thank you for coming, Representative. Would you like to say anything, or?
Well, Madam Councilor, just happy to be here. Obviously in support of the nominee, but it's just great to come here and observe the process. No better way to wait for a roll call. So glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor.
How's your uncle doing?
He's doing well. Thank you for asking.
Doing my best.
I will, absolutely.
All right, at this time, I'm going to ask if there's any councilors with questions. Councilor Duff.
Thank you. Can you tell me about your work on the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority?
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you just hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
I know that Councilor Jubenville has someplace to go. Councilor Jubenville.
Thank you.
Why don't you just go and fly?
Thank you.
So it would be-
I won't just be. So I was out last Thursday in Springfield with the student friends, and it was a very big political event for a very important elected official, and you weren't there. So I was upset with that, but I've gotten over it, because I know you had a good excuse, okay?
The rules of judicial code of conduct prohibit me from attending that event. I would have loved to have been there.
Okay, so if you enjoyed shoveling shard glass with soda on it, you're going to love being a judge. You don't have to. As far as I'm concerned, you have two qualities that I think are the most important: common sense and compassion. You've got it. Okay.
Thank you, Council.
And you're from Cathedral. I won't hold that against you. We used to beat them in hockey all the time.
Polio?
Huh?
Polio?
Oh, yeah. So, I'm glad you got nominated. I'm glad you had your witnesses here, who I respect very much, and your sister. And I think you're perfect for the job.
Thank you, Councilor Jubenville.
Councilor Hill.
Yes, I don't have any questions. Really a nice story today. I was impressed by your presentation as well as your witnesses. Like I said, Monica did an outstanding job. Your counselor has been...
Councilor Duff, I apologize.
No, that's all right.
Your counselor has been very, very supportive of you. I want you to know that as soon as your name was nominated, she gave me a call, and if your name comes before the council, I'll be more than happy to support you.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan.
All right, thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Afternoon. We had a nice talk.
We did.
And one of the things that I mentioned to you is that a lot of what you've done in your life and your practice mirrors mine very much. We're about the same age. I look younger, but I'm a little older. I went to Pope John High School. I grew up in Everett, which is a similar experience to what you've had in Springfield and Cathedral. I've been in private practice for most of my career, doing the same type of work we do. Short time as a DA, criminal work, a lot of criminal trials in the district courts and superior courts, a lot of civil cases as well. I handle quite a few civil cases. People don't know that, but I do, and you did as well. And so a lot of it mirrors what I've done. So I'm having trouble seeing how I can't say you qualify. And you're the real thing. You've got the experience. You've been doing it long enough. You have a great cross-section of types of cases that you handle. We talked about that. And I think that you're a home run. I'm voting for you next week. I wish everybody was as easy as you, but not.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Giovanni?
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
My
I
pleasure.
enjoyed all the time that you afforded me, and I appreciate the distance that you came to meet with me. Appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that.
I did. The waffles were fantastic.
I'm sorry, I did neglect one thing. Can I just interrupt for 1 second? I apologize. I just want to stress something else, too, that as soon as you were nominated, Councilor Hurley was on the phone talking to me. She's been a huge supporter of yours, and I just wanted to, I felt I had to say that. She's been a big, big supporter.
I know
So
that.
I apologize for
Thank you,
interrupting.
Okay,
Councilor.
I didn't get a call, so you're lucky. Yeah, I really appreciated the time. As I said, I wanted a Hall of Fame on the wall with Justice Gantz and Justice Island and all of them, and you could be up there. So we'll see. But there's not enough room on that wall, so that's a problem. So first of all, how many cases would you approximate that you've had in your career?
Just cases, period. Over 2,500.
That's great. That's great. I have to say that this council voted for someone to go to the Superior Court with 8 cases in 2 trials. So that's what I like to see. I like to see thousands. That's wonderful. Now, tell me now, as far as drug addiction, you've been involved in that. We talk about that all the time, opioid problem that we have. Have you represented anyone?
I have many clients have had addictions of different kinds. Not only have I had clients who have been addicted, I've had clients who've been addicted and committed suicide. It's a scourge in our society.
Well, it's affected all of us. If it hasn't affected your family, my best friend found her son on the kitchen floor, heroin overdose, and it's medical. It's certainly not criminal. But the big problem I have, and I wanted to ask you about it, we don't have enough drug treatment centers, and I'm talking to these legislators, and it goes nowhere. It's not a priority. And we have 3 branches of government, and the judiciary is getting 1%. So I think we got 3, and they don't want to go to Billerica. They don't want to go to a prison for treatment center. And I think the women have 1. So, what have you done as a lawyer when you represent these people? What kind of recommendation can you make?
I try to get them treatment. To the extent there are facilities available, I will reach out directly or through the probation department to get these people treatment.
Well, my sheriff has a program for veterans who are drug addicted, and I think that's a wonderful thing. There's a lot of people. That's Middlesex County. So in 209A, we talk about that. You represented men, women?
I've represented both men and women, plaintiffs and defendants. Mostly defendants, mostly men.
Okay. Now, I've been meeting with every nominee from parole board to judge for 18 years. And I have met so many attorneys who tell me there are unscrupulous lawyers who advise their women clients to file a 209A to strengthen their case. How would you, as a judge, determine if there's veracity in that claim for the 209A?
Great question. I would conduct a hearing with due process. I would have the petitioner, the applicant, plaintiff, or whatever you want to call the person, testify. I would obviously read the application and look closely at the application to see what they checked off, read the affidavit, have the plaintiff testify, permit the defendant or defense counsel to cross-examine that witness, applicant. If the plaintiff calls witnesses, I'm going to allow the defense or defendant or defense attorney to cross-examine any witnesses called by the plaintiff. And then I would permit the defendant to, if he so choose, or she so chose, to testify, to call witnesses, and to have, if defense counsel's there, make a closing argument. And then after listening to all the evidence, I would consider what evidence is credible, and I would make a determination. Has the plaintiff met his or her burden of proof by a preponderance of the evidence that he or she has been harmed or is in imminent danger of harm? I would make a decision based on that after giving all the parties due process.
Well, I just wanted to just to intercept to say that the host counselor has pointed out the lawyers on this committee. I am not a lawyer, but I think I can hold my own and do my job. I just wanted to say that in defense of myself. Thank you. But anyway,
pretty sharp.
but because I'm the only full-time, and I spend 4 hours at least with everyone, and I do a lot of investigation. I really liked what I found about you. Now, tell me about. I'm concerned. I know without asking you, you're against mandatory minimums.
I am.
We all are. One size does not fit all. Now, I wanted to ask you about school zones. Now, what do you think about that? Now, forget that it's a mandatory. How do you personally feel about the school zone law?
I think the original intent behind the legislation is a good intent, to keep drug dealers away from schools and from parks. But what happened over the years is, and nothing against law enforcement, because we don't need drug dealers on our streets, but I represented clients who were traveling in their vehicles with drugs in their vehicles, and the police were following those vehicles for miles, and they waited until they were in a school zone to stop them. And then once they were stopped inside of a school zone, that charge was brought, I think, and the mandatory minimum is now applicable. I think that there was a decision by the appeals court a number of years ago where they said that, given this scenario I just laid out, that that's not within the school zone, because it was basically...
Well, I'm going to tell you an experience right here. We had someone that came up, and he was 57. And when he was 17, he was on his way to school, and a 22-year-old older friend stopped him and said, "Would you do me a favor? Would you sell these bags of marijuana?" He took the 5 bags, and he brought them into the school. He was a good kid, naive, made a stupid mistake, and he just wanted to impress his friend. And he sold 1 bag in the school, and then when he tried to sell a 2nd bag, that boy reported it to the principal. They went into the locker and they found the others. And in those days, it was 5 years. He went away for 5 years. He missed sports, he missed dates, he missed the prom, he missed maybe a scholarship, missed college. And when he came out, he got a job at a private school as a janitor. He married, he had children, and he was respected in his community. He was a coach, he did a lot of good community things. Now the school was closed. So he has this on his record, and he came here for a pad. Where does he go at 57? Even if he didn't have that baggage at 57 to try to get a job. But to me, I just have to think and go back in time that that judge, when this young man went before him, he must have said, boy, I wish I could give him probation or community service or do something else than put him in prison. And he couldn't, because he had to follow the mandatory minimum law. And, you know, this isn't someone selling drugs out in the street and all of that. He made one foolish mistake. So now they're going to, hopefully, they're looking at appealing the minimum mandatory. And I think it'll fly now because there's so many of us lobbying for that. And I don't know one person I've talked to that's for it. You know, so it's pretty hard when you have an opinion and you have this young man before you, and it ruined his whole life, you know. So what I like about your application is that one of the things that you felt was important was to have compassion. And I won't vote for anyone if they don't have compassion, because you have to have compassion for everyone that comes in to that courthouse. Now tell me, have you had any experience with anyone with a disability? And by that I mean unseen, like autism, Asperger, Klinefelter. Have you had any experience at all with anyone?
We talked about Klinefelter at our
That's right,
breakfast.
that's right.
I've heard of it. I've never, I don't know of anybody who's had it. I haven't represented anyone with that. Nor have I represented anyone with autism. However, it's a great question. And
What would you do?
I have experience. I've known children with autism. I have a son, Joseph, who works, volunteers, Special Olympics.
Great.
He's 16. He's been doing it since he was 9 years old.
Wow, thank you. That's wonderful.
I would, I would defer to Joseph because he has the heart of gold. He has a heart of gold. Actually, he's taught me. So to answer your question, he's taught me. And I would want to know about a particular medical condition. I would probably urge defense counsel to share with me some medical opinions so that I have enough information to make an informed decision, and would certainly consider those types of medical conditions as mitigating factors.
Right. Well, that's me having compassion. We had someone before us that had a case, and it was 2 textings between a young man and a young girl. Only 2 textings, they never met. Now, he was 18, but he had Klinefelter's. And for people who don't know Klinefelter's, 1 out of 600 infant boys are born with an extra X chromosome. And how it manifests itself, they're immature. You might be 18, but your mental age is 14. And even your physical, male, all of those things in your body is delayed. And they're anxious, they get depressed, and all of this, you know, it makes up this person. But it's invisible. When you look at that person, you don't see it. And so I just want to relate it to, you know, so that you know. So this particular case, there was an 18-year-old boy who had Klinefelter's. And there was a texting with a girl who lied about her age. She was 15, and she said she was 18. Now, in the texting, it's he says, she says, I don't know. And what it was is, do you want to just hang out, or do you want to have sex? So the mother of the girl saw the texting, and she pretended that she was the daughter. This all was entrapment. And she pretended she was the daughter, and was just leading him on back and forth. Then, this was all with the district attorneys and with the police, this Essex. And so the policewoman jumped in and pretended she was the young girl and luring him. And here's a kid that doesn't have the, you know, he doesn't have the wherewithal to, you know, I really understand it. And, you know, you're my boyfriend, will you come out? I want to see you. Twice she tried. 3rd time she got him out. He had condoms in the car. They put him in jail. So what she was going to do is, she was going to bring, I said, did you know what Kleinfelters were? Oh, yes, I knew right from the beginning. And I says, and you're going to bring them up to the Superior Court? Why would it rise to the Superior Court? She was going to indict him in the Superior Court. Mother and father found him hanging in the closet because he'd rather be dead. He'd rather be dead. That's compassion. That's compassion. And if you know, you would have done what you said. And she didn't. And I voted no. She was qualified, but she had no compassion. I tried to pull that compassion out of her. And I never did this before. After I met with her for 4 hours, I called her the next day. And I said, it's been 3 years. Tell me, did you ever call? Did you ever send a note of condolences? She said no. And then the day before I was going to vote, I called her again. I never did this in 18 years. And I said, I have to know, if you had it to do over again, is there one thing you would change? No, I would go to the Superior Court and I would, that was it. That was it for me. That's not someone you want on the bench. So I served on the Commission of Disabilities for 22 years. I'm not an expert, and I don't pretend to be. But I understand there are disabilities that you don't see looking at someone. And it's very important that that judge doesn't treat that person like everybody else because they do have a disability. And that was entrapment all down the line in Essex. And when I say it publicly, it was Essex. And I think of that boy and it breaks my heart, breaks my heart. Not only was he an only child, he was adopted. So that's a little, education on Kleinfelters. You might never have anyone come before you, but that's what it is.
Tragic story.
That's what it is. But I like what you said, and when we met, how you would handle it. I'm just going to have that person come up and just go to the Superior Court. That was outrageous. I don't think it raised to that level 2 textings. And that's entrapment. You don't have to be a lawyer. That's entrapment. So I'm going to get off my soapbox on that. Okay. Now, I like that you've been involved a lot of things that I think show that you care in your community. You've been a coach and you read in school. All those kind of things, that means a lot to me. And one of the things that we talked about, and I my condolences, your mom died of pancreatic cancer, but what you did was, you probably raised more than $250,000 since 2010, have you?
We've had 10 events. The last one was in 2010.
Yeah.
And I didn't raise it alone. My family,
Yeah.
every person in this room.
But that's wonderful. We just lost a dear friend. He was the fire chief in Watertown, and he had pancreatic cancer. And for people who don't know, no one makes it a year with that particular cancer. So thank you for doing that. That's really wonderful. Now, you were on a zoning board. What were you on? Something in the town.
I was on the Pioneer Valley Transit Authority's ADA, American Disability Disability Act Appeals Board.
Okay. Can you tell me some?
Well, that's a quick story. My father's partner had a daughter in a wheelchair with spina bifida. She had ADA transportation services available to her. They have a 3 strikes you're out policy. If you make a reservation and then when the van pulls up, you don't come out first. So they were going to suspend their services, and the day before the hearing, Attorney Jay Posick hands me the file. He says, "Can you do me a favor?" I said, "Of course." "Jennifer has a hearing tomorrow. She needs representation." Of course. I went to the hearing, asked a lot of questions about their policies and procedures. They overturned the suspension. They reinstated her benefits, her transportation benefits. The next day, I received a call from the chairman asking me to join the board. I happily joined and served for about 16 or 17 years. And it really opened my eyes to different disabilities out there. It was a great learning experience for me.
That's great. No, that's really good. Lobby conferences, have you been involved in those?
Oh, yes.
What's your opinion?
Not needed.
What's your opinion? Would you use them if you were a judge?
Today I would use them, but it would be on the record.
Thank you.
It would have to be on the record.
That's how I feel too. I mean, if I were a client, I would say, gee, what's he saying, about me, and you don't know. So I think it has to be on the record.
I think before I even did a lobby conference, I would ask my client,
Right.
if it was okay, if he agreed to it. I would err on the side of caution as a judge. I would prefer to have it in open court on the record, sidebar.
Mm.
And if the attorneys are asking for a conference, I would, in the chambers, I would advise against it today. I think we need to be more transparent than I enjoyed them when I was practicing, I am a practicing attorney, but when we used to engage in those, which was many years ago, they seem to be effective, but in today's society, I think we need more transparency. So, although I thought they were a good thing back then, I would conduct it open court on the record at sidebar.
How about time standards?
Time standards are, they're good to have cases move quickly through the system. It's important to adhere to time standards, but there are plenty of cases where the case needs more time for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would be very sympathetic and I would say probably liberal in allowing attorneys additional time to prepare their cases.
I just heard that, I think it was about a week ago, the state senate is taking up a change in making changes in sex, well, I don't know the sex registry or how, if you could put it under that, but that if it went, it would approve an adult having sex with someone, like 15, 16, and I hope it doesn't go. I can't even imagine it. But have you heard about that one?
No.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you on that idea. Okay, we have people on a sex registry, and we have a college kid that has had sex with the girl that's what would be underage, 16, and so do you think that person should be under on a sex registry and for the rest of his life, and maybe even go on with that girl for a year or whatever? Do you think that rises to that level?
It's a good question. I would need many more facts to make that determination.
Well, you see it on TV, you hear it on the radio all the time, and they are convicted, and aren't they on a sex registry then?
Statutory rape is on the books, and it's enforced at times. I think the law enforcement and the district attorney's office really needs to exercise good judgment in bringing those types of charges.
But consensual. This is consensual, not a rape. But the parents are saying.
Minor cannot give consent.
Yeah. So what about people talk about dress codes, but I'm the only counselor here that was here when we had someone, and I'll tell you about that story. What do you think about dress codes for jurors?
For jurors?
Mm.
I mean, you would hope that the jurors show up dressed appropriately. You would hope everyone shows up dressed appropriately, but I don't think dress codes...
You don't have any problem, you see them in 30 years that they're dressing appropriately? I mean, some people don't have them. I don't mean they have to be...
People don't have the money.
They don't have to come in a suit and tie, but they don't have to have a shirt with writing all over it either, too, I don't know. But I'll just tell you what happened here years ago. We had someone going to a higher court, and he had a case in district court, and it was on Halloween. And he advised the jurors to come in Halloween costumes. Nun, priest, traffic cop, a traffic post, I should say, clown. And they distributed candy. It was like a Halloween party. And I have in my desk till this day, and that's years ago, a paper from one of the jurors, because someone came imposing him. He got through, by the way, not with my vote. But anyway, there was a list of all the jurors, their names, and beside it was all movie stars' names beside it, Sally Fields and all that. And on the bottom, it said, Judge Sikora wants to be Robert De Niro. And he lost the case. And this man had pancreatic cancer. And he had a car dealership. next to a chemical company that was spewing whatever out. Took the finish off his new cars and gave him pancreatic cancer. So he was there to try to get a settlement for his wife and 2 daughters. They voted against it. I mean, how could you be serious when you're in a clown suit? I mean, to think that this is a man's life and he's trying to take care of his family. So you don't think there should be any kind of dress code at all, huh?
I would not permit Halloween costumes, no.
Well, I'm just thinking if I ever went into court, they wouldn't even let me into the courthouse like that. But that was a judge. And you got to the appeals court. Imagine that? Anyway, so, you see, so I like your civil and criminal balance, that you've had 40% civil and 59 criminal. Can't get better than that. Because in 18 years, I don't see people with criminal experience. We see people with civil, but not criminal. And everybody says, oh, you can learn on the bench. I don't know. I'm wondering if you could learn better civil. And you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I have an opinion. And I think if you are a lawyer, if you are a judge, and you have never had any criminal cases as a lawyer, you'd be timid in giving the correct sentence to someone deserving. Am I right or wrong? That's my opinion.
Well, there's a learning curve for all judges.
Oh, sure.
If I'm confirmed, I'm going to have a learning curve.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
obviously, I think with a background in criminal law, my learning curve on criminal stuff is less than someone without
Yeah.
that experience.
But, like I said, you can't get better than that, 59-40. So what do you think is the major thing that you're going to have to prepare yourself for the district court?
The biggest challenges facing our courts and our societies, especially at the district court level, are mental health issues, addictions, domestic violence.
And I just learned this year that we have people with mental issues that are in solitary confinement. How is that allowed in 2017? I just don't understand that at all. But, okay, so when you do have someone drug addicted and you want to help them, how can you do it when you don't have places to send them? That's the big thing.
There needs to be a joint effort between law enforcement, probation department, the district attorney's office. I know that the governor unrolled a $110 million opiate plan. I have not read the article yet. It was just in this morning's paper.
Well,
And I would hope that there's going to be a joint effort within the community statewide, but within community statewide to address the issue.
well, a year ago, Massachusetts was 6th in opioids death in the whole country. So I don't know if you can perform a miracle, I don't know. But could you do that? Could you, as a judge, get these people together and see how you can get it? Because we're not getting it through the legislature. There's got to be another way of doing it.
To the extent there's resources available, or I will fight to get, if I can, I will fight to get resources to address this problem. At least now we're looking at these problems that the people need treatment. They're not criminals.
Right.
10 years ago, they were all criminals.
That's right, yeah. What about people with mental issues? How do
Very
you deal
similar.
with that? Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I just think that, you know, with everything that we know now about drug addiction, and it's everywhere, it's in everybody's town and city, that we can't start here in the State House and have them put money to drug addiction, you know, for drug treatment centers. I don't know. And I've been lobbying the last, I don't know how many years I've been lobbying, and we still don't get them. So I don't know how we're going to solve this opioid problem if we don't really care to help these people. I don't know. But people are sick of me saying it, and I'm just hoping that maybe there's a way, if you have money somewhere in the court system, if you could try to do that with the police and with all of the, you know, all the agencies. I don't know. But there's got to be a change. It can't continue like this. They can pass all the laws they want, you know. And where is that money going that the governor is giving? Where is that going?
Hopefully
Drug
in the right
treatment
direction.
centers?
hopefully in the right direction.
I hope so
It's a
too.
very complex problem.
It is, it is. What do you think about sentence guidelines? Do you agree with them or what?
In district court, I'm not even sure they're used.
They don't apply?
No.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you certainly answered all my questions, and in all the time we met, I was really, really pleased. And I was very pleased you ate all your waffle. Anyway, thank you for all your time, and I wish you, you know, my late husband was a firefighter, and I know how he felt when he came home after a fire. And I just want to relate the story I told you when I met with you. This is firefighters, what they do. And he was fighting a fire all night with the ice on his, you know, and all over, and he came home, and he says, "Where's my pick?" I says, "I don't know your pick." And he disappeared. And I didn't see him for 5 hours, and it was freezing that day. And it was probably 10 below zero that he fought the fire all night. When he came home, he said that there were photos of people. There were of weddings, grandparents, babies, and they were under these layers of ice. And he picked through all those layers of ice to get those photos, brought them to the fire station. Those people, the people that had the fire will never know. They might think someone scooped it up, but it's all anonymous. And I know those what they do.
He's a good man.
Yep. But I'm so sorry for that. That's going to be devastating. So I hope, you know, I wish you all good luck to get back and back in your home, hopefully. How long will it do you get back? You know, one of the holidays?
We'll get there.
Yeah, right.
We'll be strong. Thank
And
you,
I wish
Council.
your wife continued good health
Thank you.
and everything. But thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you. Really,
Likewise,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Madam Chair, can I just have one more comment?
You certainly may.
Do your sons know from now on that you're on? But maybe judge at home, you're on outside.
All the good things they've heard about me today, they must be saying,
What are they talking about? Thank you.
All right, I want to thank you. I've known the Santaniello family for as long as I've been around. Your dad and my dad were very good friends. All the people that you practiced with, whether it was Jay Posnick or Sam Basile or your dad, all great people. Judge Jeffrey, I was in the firm as well. So, there were good times, and things have changed a lot, but they haven't changed at all. You're still the same good, kind person. Whenever you appear in front of me, I found you to be absolutely on the mark in terms of being realistic, fighting for your client, understanding all about the system, the laws, and what the procedures were and the best way to basically proceed. I think you make a great judge. It was an honor for me to chair this hearing, and see you swearing in.
thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you very much.